SEBI, CS Anjan Roy, Anjan Kumar Roy and Company, CS Rajendra Singhi, Executive Vice President, Company Secretary, ITC Limited, and CS Manoj Banthia. On the dais, please. Welcome you all, sir. We welcome you all, sir. I now request CS Ashish Gargji to kindly present planter and Angvastram to CS Pradeep Ramakrishnan. CS Pradeep Ramakrishnan is a fellow member of ICSI and presently handling issues and listing of corporate bonds at the Department of Debt and Hybrid Securities at SEBI. His other interests include books, music, kitchen, and travel. I now request CS Ashish Gargji to kindly present Angvastram and Planter to CS Anjan Roy ji. CS Anjan Roy is a fellow member of ICSI and past chairman of EIRC of ICSI. He has more than 2 decades of experience. He is a regular speaker relating to IBC, corporate laws and corporate governance at various forums. I now request CS B. Narasimhan ji to kindly welcome our guest, CS Rajendra Singhi ji, with Planter and Angvastram. CS Rajendra Singhi ji is a law graduate, fellow member of ICSI and Executive Vice President and Company Secretary of ITC Limited. He has over 36 years of experience in corporate laws and governance-related matters. I now request Narasimhan sir to kindly welcome our guest, CS Manoj Banthia ji, with Angvastram and a planter. Manoj Banthia ji is a member of ICSI and also a fellow member of ICAI. He's also the past chairman of the Institute of Company Secretaries of India, EIRC region, and has 30 years of experience in corporate laws. I now request CS Ashish Gargji to kindly give his opening remarks, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. Before starting about the session and give a brief about what we are going to discuss, कल जब मैं आया था तो कुछ बच्चे आए जो अभी मेरे साथ कन्वोकेशन में थे या जब COE का इनॉग्रेशन हुआ था तब थे, तो उन्होंने मुझसे एक स्पेसिफिक रिक्वेस्ट की थी कि सर आप जब कलकत्ता आते हैं तो कलकत्ता के बारे में इतनी अच्छी चीज़ें बोलते हैं, तो एक बार जब आप शुरुआत करें तो उस बारे में ज़रूर बात करें। तो मैं एक बार शुरुआत वहाँ से करता हूँ और फिर हम इस सेशन को आगे बढ़ाएंगे। देश में सूरज की प्रथम किरण यदि कहीं उगती है तो वो है बंगाल की धरती। राष्ट्रगान और राष्ट्रगीत को देने वाली बंगाल की धरती। बंकिम चंद्र चटर्जी ने वंदे मातरम लिखा था और रविन्द्रनाथ टैगोर ने जनगण मन। स्वतंत्रता की ज्वाला यदि कहीं से जली थी तो नेताजी सुभाष चंद्र बोस ने जगाई थी, वो बंगाल की धरती। देश के युवाओं को कुछ करने का अलग जगाने वाली बंगाल की धरती। स्वामी विवेकानंद ने यहाँ से हमें सबसे पहले सिखाया था कि युवाओं की ताकत क्या होती है। फिल्म में आज हम मुंबई की बात करते हैं, पर यदि फिल्म में सबसे बड़ा योगदान किसी का है तो है सत्यजीत रे का। तो सत्यजीत रे की बंगाल की नगरी। और आज यदि हम धोनी और विराट कोहली को देखते हैं तो सबसे पहले यदि किसी ने क्रिकेट का सिरमौर बनाया था तो सौरव गांगुली की बंगाल की धरती। और मेरे अभिन्न मित्र जिन्होंने इस प्रोग्राम को इस मुकाम तक पहुंचाया है, और हम सब जानते हैं, हम सब इस मंच से कामना करते हैं उनके स्वास्थ्य की। और इतना सब होने के बाद भी उसी जोश और उत्साह से जो हमारे साथ में थे, और आज वापस वो किसी मेडिकल, उनकी कीमो चल रही है, तो मैं इस पूरे मंच से प्रार्थना करूंगा कि उनकी लंबी उम्र की दुआएं करें तो मेरे ऐसे मित्र को जन्म देने वाली दीपक खेतान को बंगाल की धरती। एक बार सबका हार्दिक अभिनंदन और स्वागत करता हूं मैं इस कलकत्ता की धरती से। दोस्तों, एक और चीज मैं यहां पर कहना चाहूंगा कि बहुत सारे कार्यक्रम हमने यहां पर किए हैं, पर शायद प्रेसिडेंट आते रहेंगे जाते रहेंगे, उनका योगदान जब हम याद भी करेंगे तो आज से कुछ साल बाद कोई नहीं पहचानेगा कि ये कौन से साल में प्रेसिडेंट थे या कौन से ईयर में थे। पर एक व्यक्ति का योगदान हमेशा याद रखा जाएगा, दीपक जी का, जो सीओई कलकत्ता को बनाने के लिए उन्होंने अथक प्रयास किया है। और अगले वर्ष शायद हम सीओई कलकत्ता का उद्घाटन भी यहाँ पर कर पाएं। तो ऐसे योगदान को देने वाले मेरे मित्र को प्रणाम करते हुए मैं आप सबका वापस स्वागत करता हूं और बस ये कहना चाहूंगा उन्हीं के लिए इन लाइनों के साथ कि सूरज सा तेज नहीं मुझ में दीपक सा जलता देखोगे, सूरज सा तेज नहीं मुझ में दीपक सा जलता देखोगे, अपनी हद रोशन करने से तुम मुझको कब तक रोकोगे, तुम मुझको कब तक रोकोगे, तुम हालातों की भट्टी में जब जब मुझको झोंकोगे, तुम हालातों की भट्टी में जब जब मुझको झोंकोगे, मैं तब कर सोना बनूंगा, तुम मुझको कब तक रोकोगे, तुम मुझको कब तक रोकोगे। आज हम ये बात कर रहे हैं सेशन की इमर्जिंग अपॉर्चुनिटीज अंडर सेबी लॉज, और उसके बाद हम कंटिन्यूटी में पैनल डिस्कशन को रखेंगे। प्रदीप भाई को फ्लाइट है, जल्दी निकलना है, बट प्रदीप भाई इसके पहले स्पीच दें, मैं जस्ट कुछ बातें शेयर करना चाहता हूं कि लास्ट ईयर इट वाज अ वेरी डिफिकल्ट ईयर under the pandemic, and we have seen how difficult it was for the company secretaries to make the compliance of all the laws. And whenever there was difficulty, I always used to discuss with Pradeep bhai कि ये 30 दिन का बोर्ड मीटिंग का, सेबी के लॉस का, LODR का इनका रिलैक्सेशन चाहिए, कैसे करना है, MCA ने दे दिया। वो बोलते थे अरे अभी MCA में कंपनीज एक्ट की रिक्वायरमेंट है, मैं यहाँ पे सेबी में दे दूंगा, बट पहले MCA का आना चाहिए। एंड द डे एंड द मोमेंट when we receive the notification of the MCA for the relaxation, the next moment will receive one notification from the SEBI, and all credit goes to Pradeep Ramakrishna only, our own member. And I just also want to highlight one more point. एक बार एक नोटिफिकेशन आया, ऑफ द लाइन डिस्कशन है, बट प्रदीप भाई विद योर परमिशन मैं ये सबसे शेयर कर सकता हूँ कि हमेशा उस सेबी में रिप्रेजेंट उनका जो रिलैक्सेशन आता था उसमें एक लाइन लिखी होती थी, by on the basis of the representation given by the professionals, on the representation given by the unaudited results का आया तो उसमें लिखा था Institute of Chartered Accountants. Then I called प्रदीप भाई कि हमेशा हम लोग बात करते हैं और रिप्रेजेंटेशन इंस्टीट्यूट भी देता है, तो सेबी के उस रिलैक्सेशन में ICSI का नाम क्यों नहीं आता है? And the next day when we received the another relaxation, the name of ICSI was there on the representation of the Institute of Company Secretaries of India. The further relaxations has been given under so and so act, under so and so rules. So if you are having such relations with the SEBI, and when your member is representing yourself in the SEBI and advocating yourself, nothing can be better for the profession. So with this note, I request Pradeep bhai to give a view about the emerging opportunities under the SEBI laws. Thank you so much.
Hi everyone, good afternoon. I think I should take Ashish as my advocate everywhere. He speaks very highly of me. Very kind to know all this, and I think, see, the institute or the regulator, we coexist together. It's one cannot live without the other. In fact, SEBI can't be present at every place. That is why we want professionals, we want first level intermediaries like stock exchanges to take care of monitoring. So we always want the company secretaries also to take care, because we feel that our institute very rightly markets, if I may use that word, professionals that come out of the ICSA as governance professionals, very rightly so, because I think in fact for the SEBI job, no qualification is more apt than a company secretary qualification. And I should tell you that after I've been in SEBI for 20 years now, I have made many people study CS. A lot of people have started even at a later age. So they have been able to, because thanks to the fact that we can, even study in correspondence, through correspondence, and the institute has been large-hearted enough to give the SEBI experience, consider the SEBI experience for exemptions. So a lot of people have been able to, become professionals. And SEBI probably is one regulator which has got the largest number of professionals, largest number of employees studying CS, after, that is something which I should tell you, because they find, even after, when they come to SEBI, when they open the CS syllabus, they find that, okay, it's just a mirror of what we do. Nothing can be more apt than the CS syllabus, which is why I have even now, of course, one can't push your kids, but my son has on his own chosen to study CS. So that's a very happy thing for me. So similarly, to get on, that is the reason why the institute very rightly states that ICSI professionals are governance professionals, because they are the first level check as far as governance, whether governance is being taken care of by companies or not. So just to go back in history, I spoke about this a couple of weeks back also at another of those conventions where ICSA had invited me. And this is a new crowd, so I hope you don't mind me repeating. I think a few people are here who already have heard this. See, this is a specific conference for practicing company secretaries. And it's so nice to know, and it's a very happy thing for me personally also to know, because when I finished my CS, it was in 99-2000. Okay, then the practicing company secretary, it was very embryonic. It was just starting at that point in time. There were very few firms who could market themselves as practicing professionals. Whenever you heard of a practicing professional, it was always a chartered accountant. Lawyers notwithstanding, it was always a chartered accountant. But today you have PCS firms. PCS firms are, recognized. So I remember in the year 2002, and that was when I joined SEBI. In 2003, the file on corporate governance had come to me. And that was the recommendations of the Narayana Murthy committee. And while going through the recommendations, we found that there was one certification which was required, right? There is a certification which is required that the corporate governance norms have been complied with. So we found that that certification was being given by a practicing chartered accountant. So we had a discussion, and thankfully, because I was also a CS, and I was like, why should compliances be done by a company secretary in employment, but a certification be done by some other professional? Of course, a CA can obviously certify, but there should also be a certification by a practicing company secretary. So after a lot of discussions and a lot of parlays, because ICA even went and represented to the ministry that it should not happen, because those were the days. But then finally we managed to get it done. So that was the first major certification that SEBI brought in for practicing company secretaries. So that was in the year 2003. Now we are in 2020. If you see, we have a lot of certifications, so many. In fact, when the secretarial audit was brought in by the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, after a couple of years, we did our own analysis of the efficiency of secretarial audit. How much of, because we concern ourselves only with securities market laws, right? So we have your ICDR, LODR, delisting, buyback, insider trading, etc. So we found that probably the secretarial audit report could be further embellished with a specific carve out only for, securities laws. That is how, and we consulted the institute. And I should tell you here that the institute has been very, very proactive with, as much as SEBI has been with the institute has been with SEBI. Whenever we have asked for comments, the ICSI has been the only professional institute which has given us comments on every paper we put out. I think you should all clap for that. Yeah, so it's a very good thing, because it's important to know that what the industry thinks, because we have our own ladders of inference, whether in life, professional or personal. We all have our own ladders of inference on how things work, because I have been with the regulator for a long time, so I may probably, my thinking would have sort of been influenced by sitting in a regulatory space, whereas a person who is going to comply will have a different ladder of inference, a different thought process, which is why we always value the comments that come from the institute. Recently, I think we have put out a couple of papers. One was on the ISIN restriction, the other one is on market making. So market making is a very niche thing, and we would really appreciate comments from all of you. So that is something which we really want. Now, to take this a little further, now what is that what are the strengths of a PCS today and what are the weaknesses of a PCS today? I wouldn't use the word weaknesses, but perhaps we can use the word opportunities, areas of improvement. That's how we all live. If a person lives from 1 to 80, we only have to ensure that we are a better person today than yesterday. That is how we have to approach life. So as much as the same for practicing company secretaries. See, SEBI looks at certifications by independent professionals, whether it is chartered accountants or company secretaries, with a lot of respect, with a lot of granularity. We expect that the certification by practicing company secretaries to be of the highest quality. Whenever we look at the financials of a company, we expect the chartered accountants thing to be the final word. See, because we cannot be at every place, that is the reason why a lot of these things have been given to professionals, as much as the same for practicing company secretaries. See, in the year 2017, when we conducted an audit of the secretarial audit of just securities laws, we found that there were certain gaps, which I should highlight at this forum, this being the Practicing Company Secretaries Forum. And we found that many practicing companies, the reports of a significant number of practicing company secretaries did not contain certain certifications, which is why this led to a secretarial compliance report. I can tell you probably in 6 months to 1 year from now, there will be an audit of the secretarial compliance reports of practicing company secretaries. So I would really want all of you to be a lot more granular when you get into the, see, it's not to say that, see, whenever I have received a lot of queries from different practicing company secretaries as to how would I certify certain types of certain situations, because each situation is unique and you can't etch down everything in stone, you can't put everything in law, which is why there are situations, there are iterations of multiple situations that happen. So what I would always suggest is that whenever you are making a certification, if you are, there is no a straitjacket thing, you can always qualify your statements. So in fact, there are company secretaries were even surprised to know that you could specifically qualify a secretarial compliance report, because I have had discussions even as late as 15 days back with some practicing company secretaries saying that you can qualify. So qualifications are nothing, it's just that you are okay with letting the secretarial audit report, a secretarial compliance report go, but there are certain things which you would like to highlight. Like for example, there was a non-compliance last year which has been set right. You can always mention that. I mean, not just highlighting that, because you also have to look at it from the company side. If there was something that has gone wrong and if I've set it right, why not mention that also in the report? So just not mention only the fact that there was an infirmity, but that infirmity has, the creases have been ironed out subsequently. This is something which which I have advised people, and I would really expect a lot of professionals to do the same. There is one other point which is very important as far as professionals are concerned. It's a pretty significant thing which we tend to ignore. Kindly don't bring down the value of the profession. The reason why I am saying this is, there have been calls from companies to me as to what should I pay a practicing professional. You know, that is something which I don't get into, and I always say that it's your choice. But they always tell me that, okay, there is someone else who's telling me that the person can do the same thing for half the price. You know, of course, this is something which I don't want to get into, but as a professional, I'm here speaking in my individual capacity and not as a SEBI person. So this is something which I would like to tell you, that don't bring down the quality of the profession just because there are commercial considerations. The level of audit has to be very high, because in case of, we have found, and I will tell you, you can actually go to the SEBI website. One thing which I would like to tell all professionals is to be empowered by reading a lot. A lot of us read the newspapers. The newspapers highlight only the big companies. A lot of big events only get highlighted. Obviously, the newspapers are not to function everything that happens. But the SEBI website is open to you. The stock exchange websites are open to you. A lot of orders are passed. A lot of things that come out are things which directly affect the practicing company secretaries and the company secretaries in general, and practicing company secretaries in particular also. So there have been orders passed, there have been, even we have issued warnings, we have referred to the institute's disciplinary committee also on certain occasions. See, this is very important, because whenever you look at something that is happening which perhaps should not have happened, it is something for us to learn. As I told you, we have to only aim to be a better person today than yesterday. And this is something which, because you will get the regulator's ladder of inference, right? For example, we call something as an informal guidance. Now, what is an informal guidance? You bring me a situation, and the situation, on the basis of certain facts and circumstances, I will be able to give you an opinion. So this is how we tend to learn, because not everything can be covered by law. So, and so this is something which I would expect all the people to do. Another thing which I would like to say, because it's also always a touchy thing to speak about, is the fraternal cooperation, amongst professionals. I would really, because there's nothing wrong in learning from an institute which has been around for quite some time. The ICSI Act is 40 years old, right? Whereas the Chartered Accountants Act is 80, almost 70 years old. So chartered accountants have been around for some time. There are always best practices which we can incorporate. You just look at how firms of chartered accountants also function. Because if you see the practicing company secretaries, as far as SEBI is concerned, we have been around for 30 years, and the practicing company secretary's profession is been around for 20 years as far as SEBI is concerned, because after the corporate governance certification came, we have brought in a lot of other certifications, right from delisting to buyback. There's a lot of advice that you can give on, on insider trading. We have a lot of practicing professionals, company secretaries, also representing companies in consent. Consent mechanism, and our settlement cases, even adjudication cases, we allow practicing company secretaries to to participate. So just SEBI alone, specializing in SEBI alone will give you a lot of experience, and there are a lot of areas, a lot of scope for the professions to grow as far as securities market is concerned. However, what is important is always that you also need to ensure that the ethics are not compromised and the profession solidifies, and that is possible only from the that is possible only if professionals cooperate. As I keep saying, practicing company secretaries are governance professionals, and a governance professional is someone who always has cutting edge efficiency. Knowledge and efficiency are important. These are all words which people talk about, you read about everything in the newspapers, but when you just take a step back and you find out and apply them to when a person applies them to oneself, it's very easy to find out that, okay, I have to only keep reading. I have to just keep reading more. Share a lot of things with your professional, with your fellow company secretaries, because I feel that there should be a lot more fraternal cooperation from company secretaries. Always we expect only the institute to do things. I have always seen, okay, I have sent something to the institute has to represent. There's nothing like that. As far as SEBI is concerned, we will be more than welcome with, there have been amendments that have been made with just one single representation, because it had so much weight. Okay, so whenever there is a certification, if you remember in the year, in September 2020, SEBI brought down a lot of compliances. When we brought on a lot of compliances, it was because before putting the paper out, we had heard from a lot of professionals. A lot of individual people had saying, why do you need to do this 2 times a year? Why do you need to do this 3 times a year? It's essentially the same certification. So ease of doing business is something which we have to balance along with compliance, the depth of compliance. Of course, there's a lot of talk about the ease of doing business being taking a hit because of increasing compliances. That is, from the compliance officer's side. But as far as the practicing company secretary is concerned, it actually gives you a lot more hope and joy, because you get a lot more certifications. But as much as you bring in more certifications, please ensure that that is really cutting edge, and you ensure that you keep up you have to ensure that you keep up the quality. The quality of certifications is very important. There will be an audit, certainly, of the secretarial compliance report, as I mentioned earlier. So I request you all to ensure that these reports are also of really good quality. I don't have anything more to say. In case you have any questions, because I'll be leaving now. In case you have any questions, please let me know. You can ask me anything about SEBI or anything about the profession. Is there anything? Because I will not be able to participate in the panel discussion, so I thought it's 12:40, so I thought maybe I can ask some questions. There are no questions for SEBI. Okay, good. Thanks.
Hello. Any questions, please?
I think we all are doing regular day-to-day compliances of SEBI, LODR, and so any suggestion, any questions, direct questions, you can definitely refer those questions to the ICSI. We'll take up with Pradeep Bhai. But any direct questions which you want to ask about anything, please. Yeah. So, yeah, please.
Okay, just send it to me. I'm not aware of this. 3rd November, yeah, I remember someone was telling. Just send me a mail. I'll see what I can do about it. What exactly is the format?
You can send it to Pradeep Bhai directly, or you can send it to the ICSI. We'll make a formal representation and we'll represent to the SEBI for the appropriate relaxation. So ICSI will take up through President, so you can send it. And before we'll take up the next session, I think Narasimhan sir is here. So being a chairman of Financial Services Committee, as Pradeep Bhai has mentioned, that ICSI is the institute which is giving all the representations, which is making the comments on each and every paper of the SEBI. So before taking up the next session and the questions, I want to request Narasimhan sir to please highlight some of the initiatives of Financial Services Committee taken during the year, so our members will be aware about that.
Well, we had a very passionate address from the past president, immediate past president, Mr. Ashish Garg. Mind you, I mean, there are very few members and very few council colleagues who can match his wit in terms of the oratory skill, especially when it comes to speaking in Hindi. And the only person possibly who could nearly match him was none other than the Honorable Minister, Madam Smriti Irani. I'm sure you will recall, and if you go into the YouTube, you will be able to witness the kind of tit-for-tat they were having together. And that was a wonderful gesture from the Honorable Minister on an occasion like that to Madam to respond to Mr. Ashish Garg. Well, we heard Pradeep as well in terms of the aspect which he highlighted in terms of what is expected from our members, both in employment and in practice. One thing I've always noticed when we go to make any representation with the regulator, be it SEBI or MCA, one aspect always comes in mind, which is always told to us also, saying that you are our eyes, you are our ears. We would like to hear from you. Whatever job you do it with honesty and sincerity. And that itself will make our life easier for the regulator. Just imagine, that's a kind of trust and faith they have placed on us. And that is the reason, repeatedly we have been getting recognitions after recognition where we are able to expose ourselves and give them a good record. That's what is expected of us. And if we were not up to the mark, that would not be forthcoming. Mind you, any kind of compliance, especially this kind of recognition, there's a cost attached to it as far as the corporate is concerned. And the corporate willy-nilly has to accept because it is coming from the regulator. And therefore, it is very important that this one aspect, I thought I'll put it across. Now, the topic which is going to be, on which we have got 3 panelists, and I've added our regulator, Mr. Pradeep Ramkrishnan, also as a panelist to address 1 or 2 questions to him before he makes his exit from the stage. The topic is identifying emerging opportunities, outlook, risks, and preparedness. Now, this is a very important one. It looks pretty vague. But I'm sure when you hear the panelists individually, we will give about 8 to 10 minutes for each one of the panelists to give his own view. And we have segregated the topics for each one of the panelists in a manner that they will address that particular issue. There is no overlapping amongst the panelists as well. And once you hear them, then I have a set of questions which I've got from the Institute. And that's about 18 questions only. And we may not have time for all the 18 questions. Therefore, I left it to the panelists to choose 3 amongst the questions out of the 18, which they would like to address. So I've got with me 9 questions in all out of the 18, and I don't intend to ask those 9 questions. I'll ask the balance 9 questions, and I'm sure the panelists will be prepared to answer them as well. And over to you now. I request Mr. Anjan Roy to come over to give his introductory remark.
I think before he has 10 minutes, so.
Thank you very much, Mr. Narasimhan, for giving me this opportunity to come and speak on emerging opportunities for our members. Before I start my introductory notes, I extend my best wishes to the dignitaries on the dais, off the dais, and the esteemed delegates. We are going through a tough time, but there is a saying that when going gets tough, toughs get going. So we have to keep that mind, and we have to keep meeting each other in the days to come also. Emerging opportunities for our members. India is full of emerging opportunities. Opportunities are emerging even today. Opportunities have emerged for the last more than 20 years. If I can go back in the timeline, I can select one particular years from where India has changed, and the momentum of that change has picked up during the course of the time, and that particular year was 1991. India started unfolding. India started opening its doors. And now we have changed so many laws, but all the laws, all the changes are actually in tandem. It is integration with the global requirements. Now, if we come to the latest opportunities which are unfolding, one very, very big opportunity is because there are a lot of people in the audience who are dealing in IBC. A very big opportunity is in the form of cross-border insolvency. Cross-border insolvency in India is a new development. It is very new, and we all who are sitting here have the opportunity to be a part of this right from its conception stage. Right from the stage when the consultation paper will come to the public, when you have an opportunity to give your opinion on how laws should be formed. And for that, I'm sure Mr. Narasimhan will give during his question answers the skill requirements, etc. So I leave that portion to talk at that point in time. But this is one. Another very important, India is about to move into digital currency segment. It is going to be a country which will have digital currency. Now with digital currency, I am not talking about bitcoins, etc. Because as per the cabinet note made public, these are not currencies. These are not legal tenders. This will be treated as crypto assets. But I'm talking about the corresponding virtual currency which the RBI is proposing to bring into. Now, so far as this crypto assets are concerned, I'm sure in the days to come, a regulation will come. And with that regulation, there will be a regulator, and the regulator is sitting here, Securities and Exchange Board of India, for the crypto exchanges, for the crypto assets. And then all cryptos kept in the physical wallets would be rendered illegal after a certain time gap, time window which will be given to the public. Now, whenever there is a regulation, there is a regulator, there is need for professionals to extend their hands to help the regulator in regulating that. When SEBI came, to help SEBI, professionals have been invited. We have been invited by the SEBI, and there are so many certificates Mr. Ramkrishnan has just elaborated very nicely, very, very nicely. So we can definitely expect that ICSI has a big role. All members, each member has a big role to play in this new era of crypto assets virtual currencies, new regulations, new type of exchanges, new type of disclosure requirements, and a new challenge for capacity building. Similarly, for cross-border issues, India has, according to the consultation paper, it has been proposed to the government of India to go for UN Commission on International Trade Law model. That model is very simple, 4-point model. And India has a background to that. If we go back to the Jet Airways case and NCLAT's judgment, we will see that NCLAT's judgment was also in the line of UN Commission for International Trade Law model. So it is coordination, cooperation, access, recognition, these 4 principles. Now, when these 4 principles would be adopted, we have to know that what are the laws of the other countries. India is following the UK model, but there is a very big country, USA. US model is different. Yesterday, I was listening to Dr. Navrang Saini's speech also. He mentioned one line, that in India, it is creditors in control. So in UK, it is creditors in control. We know that corporate debtor is out. Board is suspended. But then, in the cross-border insolvency, if the assets or creditors are in USA, in US, it is Chapter 11 regulations, and their debtor is in control. So the laws are different. Now, we have to build those capacities beforehand. Before all these regulations come, we have to be part of these regulations. And there are so many other opportunities also. Recently, now a number of companies are facing the challenge of developing the business responsibility and sustainability report. Company secretaries in practice have a great scope to help the companies in preparing that report. So we have to go deeper into these areas, build our capacities. Opportunities are there everywhere. To close my introductory speech, I would like to end with an anecdote by Jalaluddin Rumi, that sunlight is meant to fill your home end to end. But if some part of it doesn't enter your home, you have to mend your windows. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Anjan Roy. As we all know that Pradeep has to leave, and therefore I'll address 1 or 2 questions to him so that we can have the benefit of his experience and his thought process on that. Well, Pradeep, the question is, what kind of a regulatory development do you foresee in the future that may impact the professionals?
See, the profession is ever evolving, and regulations keep evolving. And like Mr. Roy was very rightly talking about crypto and digital currency. Crypto is one area where there is a lot of rumor that SEBI may get into regulating crypto. So in which case, if it comes to SEBI, then there will be a huge role for professionals to play. And that is one place where I can see. But I also foresee probably there is a possibility that there could be something more as far as insider trading is concerned. Because the prohibition of insider trading today is largely on a lot of self-certification, which happens. So there could be an area where, I'm only talking it from a practicing company secretary's point of view, in keeping in team with the theme of the seminar. So in which case, I believe that is one area where there could be a lot of scope. But one other place where which is also sort of not opened up as much is the commodities market, where SEBI has started regulating since the past 3 years. So in which case that is one place where I think there is infinite scope, which also could impact the profession of company secretaries.
What about social stock exchange?
Social stock exchange is, but I mean, now that you're talking about social stock exchange, there is something else which comes into my mind. That is the BRSR, the climate change and business responsibility reporting. So far, if you see, there is no independent audit of the BRSR which has come so far. and it might be a little too difficult also to audit a BRSR, a BRS report. But over a period of time, people would really want to have an independent certification of the report. And given the fact that all the countries together have to come, all countries have to come together to ensure that we abide by whatever we have signed in Copenhagen. So there will be a lot more pressure on companies also to ensure that the BRSR reports are, are certified. So though we have mentioned in our BRSR circular that you can still, sort of comply with GRI and other international norms, there is a possibility that, because today if you see, look at something like a climate bond certification, there are only a few certification agencies in the world which are, which are there. So that is a place where there is a lot of scope for practicing company secretary. So that is something which also will open up. There's also a lot of challenges as well as scope. So as much as I talk about challenges, there is also scope for the profession. So I think it's only a one-way street as far as the profession is concerned, if you ask me. And it is only growth and growth and growth with responsibility.
Thank you. That's wonderful. Pradeep also mentioned the fact that his son is very interested to become a company secretary, but that runs in his family. His wife is a practicing company secretary, incidentally. That for the benefit of all the members who are seated here. Well, you mentioned about the cryptocurrencies. I got a wind of a small clip where cryptocurrency is being accepted. Bitcoin is being accepted as a legal tender in one of the restaurants in Keynote place. It's very amazing. I mean, while the government says it should not be, but there is already a restaurant which is accepting bitcoins as a legal tender for the foods, which is for the food you order there. That's amazing. Anyway. Well, another question for you before, I think that would be good enough. That will be the last, okay? What are the expectations of the government and the regulators for professionals in general and promoting ease of doing business in India in particular? Now, you have touched upon what is the expectation, but when you look at this in terms of promoting ease of doing business, how do you feel where the professional stands and how can he, how can he help the government in achieving its objective of what it has set on?
See, ease of doing business is a term. It's a term which is often used, but ease of doing business, can never, sort of put the procedures, in the shade. So, which is why I feel that this ease of doing business, it means that if you are going to comply with certain rules and regulations, then you can go ahead and do business. But I can tell you with firmness, and this is something which you can take from me, any regulator, the laws are not going to get any more simple. Laws will never get any more simple. Laws will only get tougher and tougher, if I can use the word tough. They'll only get a lot more granular. You look at, for example, related party transactions which SEBI has brought, corporate governance report, how it was at one point in time. For the first time, when we brought in the corporate governance certification report, it was just a tick box, right? You just had clauses on the left-hand side and boxes on the right-hand side. Now we have gone to secretarial compliance report, which opens the entire door to the window where the practicing company secretaries have to sort of, they can write whatever they want, which means that the onus is on them to state. So rules will never get easier. So ease of doing business, as far as the professionals are concerned, it's not going to happen, and it's my personal view. But ease of doing business has to be looked at in a larger context. If I am compliant with all the rules and regulations, can I do business? The answer is yes. Like, I'll give you some examples. Recently in the debt regulations, when we brought the new NCS regulations, non-convertible securities regulations, we stated that companies with zero track record can come and tap the market for bonds. It was a huge development because earlier you required a 3-year track record to tap the market for bonds. We had also said that there is no minimum issue size for a public issue. These are the things which could perhaps happen tomorrow as far as ease of doing business is concerned. But as far as a professional is concerned, certifications are only going to get more and more granular.
Thank you very much, sir. I think let's do the honors for Mr. Pradeep Ramakrishnan.
Thanks a lot for being a patient audience. If you have any questions or if you have any views, you can always reach out to me at my mail ID. I'll try to come back to you. Thank you. Thank
you very much. And you can add one more of the Shahid Ki Beti certificate to your kitty. Can it be put on the screen, please?
It's a physical
Oh, we are having in person. Yeah, go ahead. अरे, आपके हाथ से दे देगा तो अच्छा है ना? Thank you, sir. You can stay put for a while. Really? Okay, right. Bye-bye. May I now request Rajendra Singhi to give his introductory remarks. Don't worry, despite Pradeep going, we still have 4 panelists. I'm adding Ashish also as a panelist.
Good afternoon to all of you. To begin with, I would like to thank ICSI and in particular Deepak, who has invited me for today's panel discussion. And it is indeed a pleasure and privilege for me to interact with you people and share my thoughts. Coming to today's topic, which is emerging opportunities for practicing company secretaries, I'm sure you will agree with me that this is one of the most common themes which has been discussed over the years at various forums, meets, etc. And rightly so. In fact, ICSI, under the aegis of Central Council, over the years have done a tremendous job, in fact, commendable job, to providing many opportunities to the company secretaries in general and as a practicing professional in particular. Indeed, we have come a long way since 1975, when for the first time the company secretaries were mandated to be appointed in the companies. Simultaneously, of course, for practicing professional also, newer and newer opportunities have been facilitated by the institute for the members. I, being a only panelist, so to say, who is in the employment, there are many thoughts crosses my mind, like what can be. There are many emerging opportunities where the PCS can make a meaningful contribution. But I thought I'll take just one topic, which I believe is one of the most important, is transitioning from a role of a compliance professional to a governance professional. I think they can play a very significant role. Of course, corporate governance is quite synonymous with the ICSI. But I must say with all humility, we have to do a lot to be truly called a true governance professional. Governance is not only compliance with the law or confirming compliance with the standard, laws, guidelines, etc., etc. It's much more than that. If you look at it, it calls for a strong governance framework, robust structure, creation of the systems, policies, and procedures, etc. And we in corporate always look for the external corporate governance professional who can come and help us in setting up these things. In fact, just to illustrate, whenever any new regulatory changes comes, there is a tendency for the corporate to go to the big 4 audit firm or a reputed law firm to understand the nuances of the law, what are its implications, including the design for implementation schedule and forming of the policies and procedure. But I think, given the unique knowledge of corporate laws we professionals have, combining with the knowledge of the functioning in the corporate, I think a practicing company secretary can do a much, much holistic job, better than what a PCA audit firm or a PCA or a legal firm can do it. In fact, just to take a leaf out of the ICSI Corporate Governance Award, which Institute has instituted for the year, and now today it is considered one of the most prestigious CG awards in the country. And I'm sure quite a few of you are aware of the kind of rigor and process one has to go through to get it. And rightly so. The ICSI also required the corporate to demonstrate the highest standard of the corporate governance. Even to get shortlisted companies, leave alone winning the same. Being in ITC, I can share my experience. We were the recipient of the Corporate Governance Award last year. If you look at the questionnaire they have, the 2 questionnaires they have, and the kind of system procedure they want companies to articulate and to support with the evidence, etc., it's a very difficult job. It's a lot of rigor and process requires, and I tell you, it requires really, indeed, a lot of effort. So sometimes I feel that if we PCS can assist the companies to help in forming those who want to aspire for this, who want to assist the companies in creating this kind of governance framework, structures, policies, system, we don't have to go and look for outside people, kind of. And the expertise in this area, in my view, If PCS can give, they can create a niche for themselves, and it can, their reputation, their not reputation, sorry, reputation is the wrong word, their values in the eyes of corporate will go many, many more fold. Right? So I would expect, and I would wish, because I also belong to this profession, that if PCS can look for this and provide solution to the corporate company secretaries in employment as well as the management to come up with a sound professional governance framework with the policies, etc., who can help them, and this will do a great job and great opportunity for the governance profession. I would like to keep it very short. I don't want to go on and on. We know governance is a word which we can talk about 3 hours, 1 day, etc. But just to conclude, I think we PCS professional can serve the entrepreneurs, corporate worlds, and the captains of the industry in helping them in setting the right governance structures to achieve the corporate governance structure, corporate governance excellence in the companies. I wish, like all other professionals, wish this profession more success, more growth, and more recognition in the years to come. Thank you for the patient hearing.
Wonderful. Thanks a lot for that address. I just need to clarify one small position. Now, I mentioned about the detailing which is being done for the Corporate Governance Award in terms of the questions. You should not forget that we started off the Corporate Governance Award in the early 2000, I think 2002 or 3. And when I was in the council, I know in 2009, when the Corporate Governance Award was to be given for the year 2008, Satyam was in the reckoning. But somehow they missed by a whisker. And that is one reason why the entire detailing was totally changed in terms of the Corporate Governance Award. Thank you very much, Mr. Rajendra Singhi. Now I looked upon to the last panelist, last but not the least, and he's going to talk about a very, very important topic, risk, management of risk. And that's given a lot of weightage now, and we have it as part of the LODR as well for all the companies to have a risk management committee. Over to you, Manoj.
Thank you, Narasimhanji. I express my gratitude towards the Institute as well as to Deepak in particular for inviting me as a speaker at this, as a panelist at this session. I must say that every human action has some inherent elements of risk. Likewise, the profession of company secretary is also fraught with several risks, some of them known, some of them unknown. We as professionals have to do our work diligently and in a transparent manner. We have to educate and inform our clients honestly and properly. We have to document all the processes that we undertake elaborately. And finally, we have to perform our jobs efficiently. Whatever you do, an inherent element of risk shall always remain. The risk is inevitable, unavoidable, and sometimes even unmanageable. But with your profound knowledge, with your fortitude and determination, you will have to wade the quagmire of professional uncertainty and scale higher and higher realms of success. I remember a beautiful Urdu couplet, अगरचे जान का खतरा भी ऊंची उड़ान में था, अगरचे जान का खतरा भी नई उड़ान में था, परिंदा फिर भी बहुत दूर आसमान में था. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to categorize risks. I am not talking about the risks which LODR prescribes. Those are the risks for corporates. My role here is to suggest what risk do I perceive for the professionals, for the company secretaries in practice. And I would like to categorize the risks into 4 categories. One is the functional risk. Second is the personality risk. Third is the regulatory environment risk. And fourth is the external risk. While the functional and personality risks can be overcome with diligence and perseverance, the regulatory environment risk and external risks are unknown and varied in nature, and they require some systems to be put in place in order to overcome them. Talking of functional risks, a company secretary in practice these days performs a wide range of functions, from incorporation to liquidation, from attestation to representation, from consultation to liaison. When the functions are so varied, the risks are also varied, the risks are also multiplied by the amount of functions, by the volume of functions that we perform. Process and attestation functions, they may involve monetary risks, they may involve disciplinary actions which may lead to even debarment or suspension, and sometimes they may even involve criminal actions. Advisory and the other functions that we perform, representative functions, they seemingly appear to be immune. But we have seen of late, even these functions attract a lot of disciplinary actions, and they also attract actions by clients in terms of the clients suing the professionals for mishandling their cases. If you look at the monetary risks, they may be prescribed by the statute or they may be imposed by the disciplinary authorities. Talking of statute, if you have wrongly certified an annual return, the Companies Act may prescribe a penalty. If you have wrongly certified or if you have omitted to mention something in a report, again, there is a penalty prescribed in the Companies Act, and now as we have understood from Ramakrishnan sir, SEBI may also come up after the audit has been completed with some kind of penalties for wrong reporting or wrong auditing, wrong issue of certificates. When it comes to disciplinary proceedings, particularly in case of insolvency laws, the action is very, very prominent. If you look at the disciplinary cases disposed in last 1 year by IBBI, you will notice that out of 37 cases that have been disposed since November 2020, in 10 cases there have been orders of suspension, and the period of suspension ranging from 30 days to 1 year. You will see that in 2 cases, there has been a complete order of debarment until exoneration in those criminal cases which have been initiated against the professionals. In 2 such cases, heavy penalties have been imposed ranging from 10% to 25%. In one such case, way back in 2019, the penalties have even ranged to the extent of 40 lakhs of rupees. In two cases, professionals have been asked to undergo a pre-registration educational course, and until they complete that pre-registration educational course, they will not be allowed to take up any fresh assignments. Merely getting more and more, while getting more and more work is laudable, wanted and appreciated, as the panelists rightly said, it comes with lot of duty and responsibility. While we have to perform our task diligently, we have to ensure that whatever we do is being done in a bona fide manner, taking all necessary precautions and efficiently. We have to nonetheless be prepared for the risks that are attached to all these functions that we perform. It may be only interesting to note that American Bar Association recently came out with a report where they mentioned that 4 out of every 5 lawyers in America get sued for malpractice at least one time, at least for some time in their career. This may not be true for India, this may not be true for our profession, but this shows the way ahead. In case of even representative functions, we have seen litigators taken action against the people who have represented them. Litigators taken action against their own counsels. We have seen action being taken after representatives being castigated by the bench. So there you need to actually really be prepared for all these kind of risks. And while more and more work is appreciated, it has to be understood that more and more work means more and more responsibility and more risks. These functional risks, I personally believe, can be overcome with your knowledge. You will have to have an in-depth product knowledge. I can do this should mean that you should be able to do that, you should be able to know that particular subject in its depth. You should have a complete product knowledge. Secondly, you should be in a position to put in long working hours. You have to be very industrious. Thirdly, you will have to document all the processes very elaborately. And fourthly, you will have to read the statute over and over again so that you don't miss any compliances. When it comes to being knowledgeable, I would just like to share an experience, an anecdote which I read somewhere. The legendary advocate C.T. Daftari, when he was addressing Supreme Court, in one of the matters where Justice Subbarao sat on the chair along with a junior judge, he was canvassing the point of view which was already overruled by Privy Council in some earlier case. C.T. Daftari was always thoroughly prepared. And when junior judge saw that this time Mr. C.T. Daftari is canvassing the point which has already been overruled, he really got very excited and informed Mr. Daftari that you are canvassing the point which has already been overruled by the Privy Council. A humble man that Mr. Daftari was, he politely said to the judge back that yes, I am aware that this is one judgment of Privy Council, this is one judgment which I am citing which has been overruled by the Privy Council, but I must also inform your lordships that this is the only judgment which has been adversely commented upon in Palmer's Company law. The legendary Justice Subbarao immediately summoned Palmer's Company law and found that what Mr. C.T. Daftari said was absolutely right. Such is the profoundness of knowledge that you need to have. When it comes to reading the statute over and over again, I'll share my own experience. When the present Advocate General of West Bengal was addressing the Honorable Company Law Tribunal in Calcutta, and while canvassing the point, he was reading out a particular section, the Honorable Member interrupted him and said, Mr. Counsel, we are aware of this particular provision, you can kindly canvass your point. In a polite manner, the learned senior advocate addressed to the bench and said, My lord, I have no doubt about your wisdom and knowledge. I am fully aware that your lordships are very well aware of these provisions. But my problem is that whenever I read the law over and over again, I always find something new and something interesting. So please allow me to read it over again. Such is the kind of preparedness you should have while performing your functions. And if you are able to do that, your functional risks will be minimized to a great extent. The second risk that I was talking about is the personality risk. Your personality is your biggest asset. And if improperly understood and if improperly utilized, your personality is your biggest liability or biggest risk. Some of us have the ability to go into in-depth. We have the ability to dissect a particular subject. We can shred the subject into pieces and understand each point of it. But we are not good orators. We cannot present our point of view. Some of us can present a point of view in a fantastic manner, but we neither have the time nor the patience to go to that particular subject in depth and understand and canvas that point of view. Those of us who are good in shredding and dissecting can act as strategists. And those of us who are good in oratory can act as counsels. And likewise, both of us can achieve great heights. But if the reverse happens, it can be disastrous. I remember a small anecdote. The legendary H.G. Wells, a beautiful lady, wrote a letter to H.G. Wells. You know, I'm sure all of you who know H.G. Wells can imagine his picture. He had a flowing beard and dotted face. He was ugly, to rudely say it. She wrote to H.G. Wells saying, I propose marriage to you, and see what unit our child would be with my beauty and your intellect. The legendary H.G. Wells writes back to the lady and says, what if the reverse happens? Two more personality risks that I'll touch upon briefly are language and memory. Company secretaries have to have an excellent command over the language. Whatever you do, whether you are drafting a resolution, whether you are drafting a notice, whether you are drafting a report, or whether you are drafting a plaint, whatever you do, you have to use language in a proper and correct manner. And unfortunately, I have to say, because it's my own in-house crowd, I have to say unashamedly that language today is the biggest casualty. Majority of us fail in the profession because of our lack of improper and lack of authority over the language. Second is, we think that memory is inborn and memory cannot be inculcated. I don't know how many of you would have heard lectures of Rohinton Nariman. The ease, Honorable Justice Rohinton Nariman, the ease with which he narrates his dates in history, characters in history, judgments, the page numbers and citations, the ease with which he narrates each and every counsel who appeared in a particular manner and the point of argument that he canvassed before a particular lordship. It is amazing. His friend says that when he was in UT, somewhere in Westminster, I have never been to London, so I don't know which place is that. Somewhere in Westminster, there is a list of monarchs which is handed. And Justice Nariman, with a view to testing his memory, turns around and tells his friend that I will read out all the names of the monarch in seriatim. You kindly see whether I am reading them correctly. And when he read 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, his friend laughed and said, oh, you missed one. After 6, this is not number 7, this is number 8. Then Nariman said, wait, let me read it again. And he again recited the names. And the friend said, oh, you again missed. After 6, he is not 7th, he is 8th. Mr. Nariman saw the list back and said, no, this is wrong. And he writes to the London authorities to say that this particular person whom you have named as monarch was never a monarch in the history. And I must tell you, the London authorities write back to Nariman, thanking him for pointing out the mistake, and immediately rectified the list and corrected the list. Such is the memory of the person. Such is the kind of memory that one should inculcate. Talking of the regulatory environment risk, SEBI, as everyone said, we are getting lots and lots of work. But please remember, regulatory support is very essential for the growth of a profession. And regulatory support can never stop. It has to be continuous, it will be continuous. But a profession cannot survive on the crutches of regulatory support. A profession has to survive on the ability and on the knowledge and intellect of the professionals to which it belongs. As he said, if we are not in a position, today we have got so many opportunities. Tomorrow, if we are not in a position to perform, we will not be spared, and there will not be any second thought when these opportunities are taken away from us. So lots of responsibility lies on our shoulders, and this regulatory environment risk is totally an unknown risk. Today, it may not be to that great extent, but in times to come, if we do not perform diligently, this can really become a very big risk. And the last is the external risk that I am talking about, the technology risk. You are a repository of so much of data, client data, your own papers. There is a fear of getting hacked. There is a fear of the entire data being, a theft of data had taken place, the data being stolen. You have to have systems in place so that these data remain intact and they don't get either hacked or they don't get either stolen away. There is a police risk. Because of something wrong done by your colleague, the entire firm can be in problems. This also has to be taken care of. Systems have to be in place so that these risks are also mitigated. Friends, just a minute, wait. Finally, I would say, insurance is one particular thing which all professionals, there has to be a mechanism where professional liability insurance comes in a big way. While we already have some policies which takes care of errors, omissions, or negligence, there is no insurance for mala fide actions. And there can never be any insurance for mala fide actions. And finally, Ashish rightly mentioned about his good friend, who also happens to be a very good friend of mine. Looking at Deepak, one thing that comes to my mind is, though not related, as far as we professionals are concerned, we are one-man army. If we collapse, the family collapses. You are the biggest risk to yourself. Get your life properly insured. None of us are properly insured. You go home and look at yourself, none of us are properly insured. At least this should teach us a lesson that we should appropriately get ourselves insured so that at least if something wrong happens to us, there are people who don't suffer because of our lack of foresight. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Hello. Yeah, thank you, Manoj. That was wonderful. Absolutely excellent, I thought, and you were very passionate about it. Possibly one risk which you could have added is the risk of reputation. Now, for a professional, that comes foremost, and I'm sure you will add it in the next session. You're going to talk about risk, and especially when Pradeep also mentioned about the fact that they're going to have audit of the annual sectoral compliance report. They've already commenced it. Let me tell you, I have been privy to it, and they've identified certain cases where the professional has not reported what he should have done. There's a simple penalty imposed by the regulator for non-compliance with LODR. Even that has not been reported. I've seen some of those reports, and that has been shared with me. Mind you, all professionals keep in mind, sectoral audit has been recognized by SEBI under Regulation 24A. More importantly, annual sectoral compliance report, which was only part of a direction, part of the circular, has also been recognized under 24A. Now we are under the umbrage of SEBI, and they are having a close look at our professionals, how we perform. So that's very important. And possibly Manoj has exhausted whatever he had to say, even in terms of the questions I need to pose to him. And therefore, I will avoid posing any questions to him. Okay, now start off. Let's have Anjan Roy to it. Now the question is how to prepare for various emergency opportunities. I mean, how a PCS is to prepare for various emerging opportunities. Emerging opportunities.
for a professional, am I audible?
Yeah, very much.
For a professional of the stature of a practicing company secretary, first preparation is to go in depth into the law. Why I am using the word law is that from the days of preparation for this course, and then after a person becomes a member of the institute, he knows that he has to do the procedural compliances. So procedural compliance has somehow become a part and parcel of the CS work. But one step ahead is needed to understand the law, legal principles, how the law has originated. In one word, to understand the legal jurisprudence behind this emerging opportunities. Say, if we look at the emerging opportunities that I referred during my introductory speech in a very brief manner, insolvency or cryptocurrency. Now, when the law emerges, the last thing is when there is an enactment. But the process starts much before that. If we look at when IBC came, IBC was enacted in the year 2016. But there were so many BLRC reports. And while giving a judgment, even the Supreme Court of India refers to the Bankruptcy Law Committee reports, because that gives the genesis of the insolvency law in India. What was the need? What was the societal changes? And even in the judgments, and therefore, as Ranjit Bhai also said, that especially in case of IBC, one must also know up-to-date knowledge of the judgments. These are very important. Yesterday, as Dr. Saini was referring, that there has to be commercial wisdom with the committee of creditors. But what is the rationale behind commercial wisdom? For that, one must go into the Supreme Court judgment in K. Shashidhar versus Indian Overseas Bank. Why commercial wisdom should be given to the committee of creditors? Supreme Court has very beautifully explored all the angles and given its judgment. What is the difference between the capability of committee of creditors, which is consisted mainly of financial institutions and banks, and the difference in the capability of the adjudicating authority? Whether the adjudicating authority has the capability to decide which resolution plan is commercially good for the company, or whether this capability lies with the commercial financial institution and banks. It is part of the Honorable Supreme Court's order that for financial institutions and banks, it is the part and parcel of their work. They do project assessment. They have dedicated teams to assess the project, to see the viability of the loan, and with that expectation they give that. Because they have, this is part of their work. But adjudicating authority neither has the infrastructure nor that capability to decide what is commercially good. And therefore, so far as commercial wisdom is concerned, adjudicating authority, not only NCLT, any court in India, does not have any right to interfere. And if for this matter, for the purpose of deciding which resolution plan is good or commercially viable for the company, it is absolutely the committee of creditors. NCLT's role has been confined only to the technical satisfaction, technical compliances. So for us, it is very important to understand that why commercial wisdom has been given. Procedural part is all right, that form number this has to be filed within this time period, the reply and rejoinder has to be filed, and this is how it has to be filed in the portal, etc., etc. But then to take a decision, to take a stand that whether you have any scope in this case or not, you must understand the law. With your permission,
Yeah,
Mr. Narasimhan, I can give just one recent example.
Go ahead.
I can give one recent example.
I'll listen one question for you. Go ahead. I need to do justice.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I'll give that example later on.
Oh yeah, thank you very much.
Go ahead.
Wonderful. Now the question is for Mr. Rajendra Singhi. Arising out of it, now several recognitions have been given by the regulators like MCA, SEBI, IFSCA recently. Now, how does the PCS prepare to take up these emerging opportunities? And incidentally, another question, which I think will be close to your heart, your own interaction with the PCS who's been handling your assignments from time to time. Thank you.
Hello? Yeah. Coming to the first question, what he said, see, I think it is common for all professionals, not for the PCS also. One, you have to be constant upgradation of the knowledge. You have to be up to the mark every day basis. Like even after today, after 33 years in the profession, still I keep aside 1 hour every day to update my corporate knowledge, anything, what's happening. Second, thinking out of box, innovation. And the third one is you're honing our skill for the emerging technology, digital technology in particular. These are the hallmark for any professional. So same thing applies to even PCS also. So if we do all these things, I'm sure we will do wonders. And second question, with regard to the interaction with the PCS and my experience, see, in a group we have about 6-7 PCS across the company. So I'm taking the feedback from all the 6-7, 2-3 things I will just explain, or rather put before the house. One part is, it is good if they can give a checklist in the beginning, before the audit starts. Second, we have seen in many cases, auditor comes with the auditor or their team members, when they come with a mindset is a fault finding. You have made a mistake. Rather than, without understanding aggressively that you have made a mistake, you have not complied with the law, the onus is on you to prove whether you have done or not. And the third and last, which is important amongst many, is that the role today, presently, you just comply, you see confirming whether you are doing or not. But you are not giving any valuable advice to us. Okay, this is the area you can improve. This is a suggestion I will give. You can further improve your governance policies, etc., and systems, etc. That part, it never comes. This is my feedback based on the 6.
Nobody wants to go around telling their client, no, you're not doing this properly. You know, generally people are very skeptical about saying that.
Not properly. I'm saying, can give us.
Oh yeah, you can do it much better than what.
This is the way it can be worked. That's
Maybe
what that's what we look forward.
One thing I expect all professionals to share is that you're doing several. You have several clients. There will be some practices being adopted by a client, which is far superior to the practices which is being adopted by other clients, and that you should definitely share willy-nilly with the client, saying that this is a very important practice, why don't you do it? I think that will be one way up in terms of. Now I have my own colleague in the council, past president of the institute. Now he's a panelist for the day, and I forcefully made him a panelist for the day. So can I ask this question to you, gentlemen? What are the skills required by a PCS to become a successful professional? One more request to you. I would like to have this answer in your chaste Hindi. Although I would love to hear it, I may not understand much of it. Please proceed.
स्किल सेट, माइंड सेट, आई थिंक मनोज भाई ने बहुत सारे रिस्क बताए, बट उन सब रिस्क में सबसे बड़ा जो स्किल सेट है, जो सबसे बड़ी अपॉर्चुनिटी है, वो है आपका कॉन्फिडेंस, आपका हौसला. तो इसका एक ही जवाब यदि मैं दूंगा कि कभी महक की तरह हम गुलों से उड़ते हैं, कभी महक की तरह हम गुलों से उड़ते हैं, कभी धुएं की तरह पर्वतों से उड़ते हैं. ये कैंचियां हमें उड़ने से क्या रोकेंगी? हम परों से नहीं, हौसलों से उड़ते हैं.
Very nice, very nice. Thanks a lot. I think I'll take some few questions from the audience over here, because I'll allow only 2 more questions. There's an open house coming up. We are already behind schedule by only 5 minutes, incidentally. Yeah, go ahead. Questions from the audience, please. No questions? Yeah, gentlemen, please. जरा इनको माइक देना भैया. मेरा आवाज बुलंद है बट इनका आवाज इतना बुलंद नहीं.
सर हम लोग अभी आज़ादी का 75वां अमृत महोत्सव मना रहे हैं भारत में, और हमारा जो प्रोफेशन है कंपनी सेक्रेटरी का, ये टॉप प्रोफेशन है इंडिया में, इसमें कोई डाउट नहीं है. हम लोग थाउजेंड्स में हैं, 60,000 बोलते हैं संख्या, 60,000 इस तरह की संख्या हम लोग बोलते हैं. कंपनीज लाखों में है, और प्रैक्टिसिंग कंपनी सेक्रेटरी की जहाँ तक बात है, ये बहुत अधिक नहीं है, परसेंटेज बहुत अधिक नहीं है. डेटा मेरे पास नहीं है, लेकिन बहुत अधिक परसेंटेज नहीं है आज के दिन भी. कितने?
11 से 12,000
प्रैक्टिसिंग. ओके, तो पीसीएस हमारे 11 से 12,000 है, कंपनियां लाखों में हैं. उसके बाद भी मन में आता है काम नहीं मिलता, काम नहीं है. ये ऐसा प्रश्न क्यों? इसके विषय में इंस्टीट्यूट क्या सोचता है? पहली बात.
The only person who can answer this question is my.
पहली बात.
Yeah. एक और question.
तो ये एक प्रश्न है. दूसरी बात, ये आज प्रोग्राम हो रहा है हमारा 22वां कन्वेंशन है पीसीएस का. मेरे कुछ फ्रेंड्स आउटसाइड कलकत्ता भी हैं. मैं उनसे संपर्क किया कि आप लोग कलकत्ता आ रहे हो. एक ही आंसर मिला, वी कांट अफोर्ड, वी हैव नो मनी. इसका क्या इंस्टीट्यूट के पास आंसर है? ऐसा क्यों? थैंक यू.
I think president will be the appropriate person to give the answer in open house. But मैं इसका जवाब देना चाहता हूँ. यदि आप ये बोलते हैं कि अफोर्डेबिलिटी नहीं है, आप ये बोलते हैं कि काम नहीं है, मुझे इस जनता में से जितने लोग बैठे हैं, या मेरे जितने 65,000 सदस्य और 3.5 लाख विद्यार्थी हैं, उनमें से एक भी मेंबर जिसको रीजनेबली, आज यहाँ पे मेरे जो पैनलिस्ट बैठे हैं, आई थिंक सब 10 ईयर्स 20 ईयर्स प्लस एक्सपीरियंस वाले हैं. सामने जो बैठे हैं वो सब 10 साल 15 साल 5 साल एक्सपीरियंस वाले हैं. मुझे एक भी व्यक्ति ऐसा लाके दिखा दीजिए जिसको लगभग 5 से 10 साल प्रैक्टिस में हो गए हो, या 5 से 10 साल जॉब में हो गए हो, और उसके पास गाड़ी नहीं हो या उसके पास घर नहीं हो. मैं आपको लाखों इंजीनियर ऐसे दिखा दूंगा जो इस प्रोफेशन, जो इंजीनियरिंग के प्रोफेशन में, बट जिनके पास कुछ भी नहीं है. मैं आपको कई सारे ऐसे वकील दिखा दूंगा जो आज भी नोटरी का और अटेस्टेशन का काम कर रहे हैं. बट मुझे आप एक ऐसा कंपनी सेक्रेटरी लाके दिखा दीजिए जो इतनी मेहनत करने के बाद जिस प्रोफेशन में आया है और जिसको 5 से 10 साल प्रैक्टिस में या जॉब में हो गए, जो नहीं है. आज यदि हम स्कोप या काम की बात कर रहे हैं, मैं तो बोलता हूं जब MCA 21 आया था तो सबसे बड़ा फियर था, अरे ये तो अब सारा काम घर बैठ के हो जाएगा, ऑनलाइन फाइलिंग है. मुझे बताइए उसके बाद काम बढ़ा या कम हुआ? कंपनीज एक्ट 2013 आया, उसके बाद काम बढ़ा या कम हुआ? और जहां तक यदि प्रदीप भाई बैठे थे, सर्टिफिकेशंस की बात हमने की, रिकॉग्निशंस की बात की, ईज ऑफ डूइंग बिजनेस की बात की. मैं आपको एक ऐसी चीज बताता हूं, हर लिस्टेड कंपनी में स्क्रूटनाइजर रिपोर्ट चाहिए. उस स्क्रूटनाइजर रिपोर्ट में क्वालिफिकेशन क्या है? एनी कंपनी सेक्रेटरी, चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट, कॉस्ट अकाउंटेंट और एनी पर्सन ऑफ एनी रेप्यूट, मींस कोई भी व्यक्ति कर सकता है. पर मैं आपको डाटा देता हूं कि 90% काम वो जो कर रहे हैं वो हमारे प्रैक्टिसिंग कंपनी सेक्रेटरी कर रहे हैं. तो जहां पे रिकॉग्निशन नहीं है वहां पे भी सबसे ज्यादा काम करने वाले कौन लोग हैं? प्रैक्टिसिंग कंपनी सेक्रेटरी.
थैंक यू वेरी मच. ये शायरी से क्लोज कर सकते हैं?
हम तो दरिया हैं, अपना हुनर जानते हैं. आज हम लोग बोलते हैं ना कि स्कोप नहीं है, काम नहीं है. मैं बोलता हूं एक दिन ऐसा भी आएगा जब सर्टिफिकेशन नहीं बचेगा. हम सेल्फ सर्टिफिकेशन की रिजीम में है. आज हम इंटरनेशनल अपॉर्चुनिटीज की बात कर रहे हैं. पहली बार हमने 5 सेंटर ओवरसीज ओपन किए पिछले 2-3 साल में. 5-6 अगले सेंटर्स और ओपन करने वाले. पर जो लोग गए हैं, आज लगभग 2000 कंपनी सेक्रेटरी ऐसे हैं जो इंडिया के बाहर हैं, जिन्होंने एक्ट इंडिया का पढ़ा है पर बाहर काम कर रहे हैं. किस बेसिस पे? जो मनोज भाई ने बोला था कि खुद की काबिलियत के बेसिस पे. ये सर्टिफिकेशन रहेगा ही नहीं. तो हम तो दरिया हैं, अपना हुनर जानते हैं. जिस तरफ भी चल पड़ेंगे रास्ता हो जाएगा.
वाह, लवली लवली लवली.
आशीष जी, मैं यहाँ पर आपकी बात पर एक लाइन ऐड कर देता हूँ. लक्ष्य न ओझल होने पाए, कदम मिलाकर चल, मंजिल तेरे पग चूमेगी आज नहीं तो कल. आपकी बात बिल्कुल सही है. लेकिन हम लोग कल से जो बात यहाँ कर रहे हैं ना, एक बात ये भी कर रहे हैं, अभी मनोज जी ने तो बहुत ही अच्छे से एक्सप्लेन किया कि गवर्नेंस की बात हम लोग कर रहे हैं, कंप्लायंस की बात कर रहे हैं. कंप्लायंस में जैसे कई सारी बात हो रही थी, उसमें ये भी निकल के आया कि भाई खाली कंप्लायंस की चीज़ जानता है पीसीएस और बस वो फॉर्म फाइलिंग जानता है और गवर्नेंस की तरफ ध्यान नहीं देता है. तो मेरा एक प्रैक्टिकल एक्सपीरियंस इसमें ये है कि जब हम कंपनियों में कहीं पर भी किसी पीसीएस से बात करते हैं, भैया तुम मेरा फाइल कर दे बस, क्योंकि नहीं तो पेनाल्टी ऑफ फाइन दिख रहा है मेरे को ऊपर में. तो वो सारा दिन खाली कंप्लायंस में ही माथा मारता है कि भाई इसको कहीं पेनाल्टी और फाइन नहीं लग जाए और मेरी नौकरी नहीं चली जाए। तो ये निकालना पड़ेगा माथे से कि गवर्नेंस वाले साइड में इंस्टीट्यूट को माथे से निकालना पड़ेगा पीसीएस के या कंपनी सेक्रेटरी इन एम्प्लॉयमेंट के कि भाई गवर्नेंस में भी आना है, खाली बस फॉर्म फाइल करना था कि पेनाल्टी नहीं लगे और फाइन नहीं लगे और उसी में सारा दिन हम लगा दें, ये प्रैक्टिकल हो रहा है।
Right then, I think let's close out. Let's do the honors. Can we have the Shahid Ki Beti certificate, please?
शहीद की बेटी सर्टिफिकेट फॉर CS अंजन रॉय जी। I-
Requesting President to join and Manish Bhai to join. President, please join.
I request to kindly present शहीद की बेटी सर्टिफिकेट फॉर CS राजेंद्र सिंह जी। I request to kindly present शहीद की बेटी सर्टिफिकेट to CS मनोज बांथिया जी।
Thank you, friends. The next session will start immediately. That's the open house session. Thank you.